Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. At UFC 284, Islam Makhachev defended his lightweight title against Alexander Volkanovski via unanimous decision, and this was a controversial decision because as soon as the scorecards were read, there were people screaming from the rooftops that Alexander Volkanovski was robbed, that he should have gotten the decision, and that he should have walked out of UFC 284 as the double champion and the new UFC lightweight champion. I've went back and rewatched the fight, and I've rescored the fight, and I'm going to answer the question, was Alexander Volkanovski robbed at UFC 284 against Islam Makhachev? And spoiler alert, my scoring has changed round by round for UFC 284 since I watched it live. Now, before I get into any of that, I talk about UFC 284 and the UFC 284 main event in depth on my live post-fight. I talk about the main event for about a half an hour. I will link it down in the description if you want to check it out after this. And also, do me a favor and comment down below, who do you think won the main event of UFC 284, Islam Makhachev or Alexander Volkanovski? And do you believe Alexander Volkanovski was robbed? I am genuinely curious to hear your opinion before I give you my revisited opinion after I've rewatched the fight the day afterwards. Now, before I get into anything else, I'm going to give you how I scored the fight live when I watched UFC 284. And the way I scored it was round one, I thought Islam Makhachev landed the better shots on the feet. I thought, Volk, he landed a good left hand. There were some moments for Volk. And then you add the fact that I thought Islam outstruck Volk in the first round, combined with the fact that he took him down towards the end of the first round, had the back, was looking for the rear naked choke. I thought round one was clearly Islam Makhachev's round. Then you have round two. I thought round two was very, very close. I thought both guys landed good shots. I thought it was pretty even. I thought, maybe you could say Volk dropped Islam. It was a weird kind of exchange where it looked like Volk may have dropped Islam. And I just thought this round was very, very close. I thought it was hard to score. And live, I gave round two to Alexander Volkanovski, especially because of that exchange where it kind of looked like Volkanovski, as he's backing Islam up against the fence, it kind of looked like he dropped him. So I thought, you kind of take that into account. You take into account the round was kind of even. I gave it to Alexander Volkanovski. Round three. I thought round three was close as well. I did not think it was as close as round two. And I thought Islam Makhachev clearly won the third round. I do think it was close, but I thought we had a clear winner. I thought Islam Makhachev landed the better shots in round three, and I scored round three for Islam. Then round four, which is a very controversial round apparently among MMA fans. I thought round four was a clear Islam Makhachev round. I thought he landed the better shots on the feet, and then he controlled Volkanovski for the last 3.5 minutes of the round, had his back. I know Volkanovski threw shots as Islam was on his back, but I don't think that counteracts the fact that Islam outstruck him on the feet before the takedown, and the fact that Islam Makhachev is attacking a rear naked choke. I know a lot of people saying Islam's stalling this and that. He was looking to set up a rear naked choke. He even threw some punches of his own. And I thought the fact that people were saying round four was for Volk, I thought was insanity. I thought it was a clear round for Islam Makhachev. Then you go to round five. I thought initially, the early part of round five, I thought Islam Makhachev was winning. But you could see Volkanovski had some urgency in round five. And then obviously we saw what happened the last 2 minutes, minute and a half of round five. It was pretty even. I would even edge it Islam Makhachev up until that point. But Volkanovski kind of lands a right hand. It's another one of those kind of tricky scenarios where it looks like Islam shooting in on a takedown, gets clipped with a right hand. You could say that Volkanovski dropped him. And then Volkanovski finishes the round on top, landing some ground and pound on Islam Makhachev. I thought this was a clear round for Alexander Volkanovski. So just to sum up how I scored it watching it live, I thought that one was a definitive round for Islam Makhachev. I thought round five was a definitive round for Alexander Volkanovski. And I thought round four was also a definitive round for Islam Makhachev. 2 and 3 were close. I gave 2 to Volkanovski and I gave 3 to Islam. So I scored it 3-2 for Islam Makhachev, 48-47. I thought that Islam Makhachev should have gotten the win at UFC 284. When I rewatched the fight, and I'm going to get to my scoring round by round for when I rewatched the fight, it changed. It changed. Spoiler alert, I think I told you in the beginning of the video, it changed. For round one was pretty much exactly the same. I thought that round one, Islam Makhachev landed the better strikes. I know Volkanovski kind of had that switching stance left hand that stumbled Islam Makhachev, but in this round, Islam Makhachev stumbled Volk as well. He landed like a forearm shot, then he landed a good knee. He landed a head kick after he dropped Volk to one knee. It was like a forearm that landed on the side of the head. And I thought round one, you add the fact that I think Islam outstruck him, and then you add the takedown, the back position, the fighting for the rear naked choke in the first round. I thought round one was still definitively Islam Makhachev. Then I'm going to skip ahead to round 4 and round 5 because I thought those were still clear rounds. 4 for Islam Makhachev, round 5 for Volkanovski. I thought they were clear rounds when I watched them live. Now, when I went back and rewatched them, they were still very clear. I thought round 4 was very, very clear for Islam Makhachev. You had some decent leg kicks to open up the round by Volk, but then you had a check right and a straight left by Islam. You had another good left hand by Islam Makhachev. You had Volk pressuring, landing some jabs, but then he ate a right hand by Islam Makhachev. Then Islam took him down with 3.5 minutes to go, controlled him on the ground, had the body triangle, and was looking for the rear naked choke. I know that Volkanovski threw some shots as Islam had his back. Those shots were not enough to overcome what Islam Makhachev did for the first 2 minutes on the feet. Islam Makhachev did more damage on the feet than Volkanovski did on the ground when he's just throwing little shots behind his head. Round 4, I believe it's indefensible to give it to Alexander Volkanovski. I think round 4 was a clear-cut round for Islam Makhachev. Now, round 5, same thing. But one thing I will say about round 5 that I kind of forgot, with the last minute and a half, round 5 up until the last minute and a half, 2 minutes, was very, very close. And I would even say it was Islam Makhachev's round up until that last 2 minutes because Islam was landing some good shots. Volkanovski had some moments too. He landed a good inside leg kick. You had Islam landed a good left hand. There were some heavy leg kicks from Volk throughout the first 2 to 3 minutes of the 5th round. But you had a good step-in knee from Islam, some good punches from Islam. There were some wild exchanges in the clinch. And I thought up until like about the last 2 minutes when Islam Makhachev really started to fade, I thought, this could be Islam Makhachev's round here. But ultimately, Volkanovski ends up hitting Islam Makhachev with a right hand. People were calling this a drop. I'm 50-50 on this, even after rewatching it in slow-mo multiple times. It was a combination of Islam ducking under, looking for a takedown, and getting hit with a punch. I don't think he was rocked at all. Do you want to call it a drop? Maybe. Okay. But I think it was a combination of just Islam being tired, looking for a desperation takedown, and Volkanovski hitting him at the perfect time and then ending up on top. And then obviously Volkanovski did a decent amount of ground and pound from the top. I think round 5 was a clear Volkanovski round. Now we're going to jump back to round 2 and round 3, which I thought were the closest rounds when I watched it initially, and I thought these were the closest rounds when I rewatched the fight as well. Round 2, there was some wild exchanges, like in the first minute or so, where neither one of these guys really landed. There was a solid body kick from Islam Makhachev. Volk was backing Islam up, but there was this exchange where in real time, a lot of people thought Volkanovski dropped Islam Makhachev. There was a left hand, and it looked like it might have dropped Islam. I went back and rewatched this probably 10 times. I rewatched it in slow-mo. The left hand from Volkanovski did not drop Islam Makhachev. And then you have a round, it was Islam looking for the single leg. He got him down afterwards, but Volk popped right back up. There were some clinch exchanges in this round where both guys were landing some good shots. And I think this was a round where you looked at the striking. Volkanovski was landing at a lot of air. He was throwing combinations, but they weren't necessarily landing. And I think Islam Makhachev landed the better shots in this round. I think he landed the better knees in the clinch. And I just think this was a very close round. But I think you take out the fact that Volk potentially dropped Islam, which I don't think he did. The punch completely missed. I think round 2 is now Islam's round. I initially scored this for Volkanovski. So I thought round 2, Islam Makhachev just landed the better shots. He had a couple takedowns, but he had one takedown, I think, but Volkanovski popped right back to his feet. But in this round, Islam was firing the straight left. He stumbled Volkanovski with that straight left in this round. And I just think there was a great flurry from Makhachev, maybe with 2 minutes left in the round. And I think Makhachev just did a little bit more damage in this second round. And so I give round 2 to Makhachev upon rewatch. Then you have round 3. Round 3 started out pretty slow. Then you had an early head kick from Islam Makhachev, but it wasn't any significant power. You had a right hand from Volk. Wasn't really any significant power. You had a hard body kick from Islam in this round as well. You had some leg kicks by Volkanovski. You had a left hand from Islam. You had some good punches, some good solid punches from Islam, in this third round. And this was a round that I thought initially was clearly Islam Makhachev's. I thought it was close, but I thought it was clearly Islam Makhachev's. But I thought round 2 was closer than round 3. Upon rewatch of round 3, I thought round 3 was the closest round of the fight. But I do think that Islam Makhachev landed the better shots in round 3. It was a razor close round. But I think Makhachev landing a little bit more powerful shots, kind of stinging Volkanovski a little bit. I think Volkanovski lost round 3. And I think Islam Makhachev, if you've been keeping track of my scoring, won the first 4 rounds. So I don't think that 49-46 scorecard is egregious. I think you can make the case that Volkanovski won rounds 3 and round 5, but I would not make that case. I was shocked that I gave round 2 to Islam upon rewatch. And when I rewatched this fight, it probably took me about 45 minutes to rewatch this fight because I really went through it. I rewinded some of the combinations. I rewatched them. I watched some of them in slow motion. And this was a very competitive fight. But I think Islam Makhachev won the first 4 rounds. Bare minimum, Islam Makhachev won rounds 1, 2, and 4. But I believe he won the first 4 rounds. And Volkanovski took the 5th round. I honestly believe, and this is going to probably piss a lot of people off, if you end this fight after 23 minutes, okay, so you cut off the last 2 minutes of this fight. I know that's not how it works. I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation. If you cut off the last 2 minutes and this fight ends at the 23-minute mark, I would score this fight 50-45 for Islam Makhachev. I think, and I talk about this in depth on my post-fight, what people don't realize is they went into this fight with a preconceived notion that if Islam Makhachev could not defeat Volkanovski on the ground, hold him down, beat him up, submit him, look for the TKO with ground and pound, they thought Volkanovski would automatically win on the feet. And that was not the case. Volkanovski said it perfect in his post-fight interview. He said, look, I think he underestimated my grappling and I think I underestimated his striking. Islam Makhachev won this fight with his striking ability. Round 4, people are going to argue about that ad nauseum. That, well, Volkanovski did more damage on the ground, because Islam had his back and didn't do nothing. He was just looking for a rear naked choke. No. First off, that position, he's looking for the rear naked choke. According to the rules, because he's looking for a potential finish that supposedly scored higher. But let's just say that happened for all 5 minutes. Okay, maybe you can make a case if Islam held him for 5 minutes, was on his back, and all that happened was Volkanovski throwing punches behind his head. I can understand that argument. But you can't discount the first 2 minutes where Islam Makhachev was outstriking Volkanovski. And I think the reason that this decision has been so controversial is because, one, because of the crowd. The crowd was obviously, going crazy every time it looked like Volkanovski was landing one big strike. But I think the other reason was low expectations for Alexander Volkanovski's performance. Because going into this fight, even though I picked Islam Makhachev, I believe that Alexander Volkanovski had a legitimate shot to pull off and win this fight and become a double champion. A lot of people completely counted him out. So I think when you have these scenarios where you think a guy has no chance and then he comes out and puts on an amazing performance, even in a loss, you can't fathom, you can't wrap your head around the fact that he didn't win. So it was the low expectations, people thinking that Volkanovski was going to get dominated, and the fact that he made it a very competitive fight was the reason that a lot of people scored this fight for Alexander Volkanovski. But the answer to the question, It absolutely was not a robbery. I believe had the fight went to Alexander Volkanovski, I don't think it would have been the worst robbery ever, but it would have been close to a robbery. I don't know if I would have used the word, just because maybe you can make the case for 2, 3, and 5 for Volkanovski. But I think it would have been a bad decision had the decision went to Alexander Volkanovski, because I think he was able to defend the takedowns. He was able to scramble back to the feet. And I think a lot of people thought on the feet, Volkanovski's going to win. Islam Makhachev did a lot of damage on the feet. He snapped Volkanovski's head back multiple times in this fight. He had some good knees to the body. And I think a lot of people completely discounted the striking of Islam Makhachev. I made that mistake going into the Charles Oliveira fight. I did not make that mistake going into this fight. But I think ultimately Islam Makhachev should have gotten the decision. I think he should have won this fight. And I think honestly this is the best case scenario, because if Alexander Volkanovski becomes the lightweight champ, at least one division is getting held up, because he's either not going down and defending the featherweight belt, or he's going down and fighting Yair to unify the belts. And then meanwhile, you have lightweight, which is full of contenders. So I think Alexander Volkanovski's stock goes up, because, I mean, what a performance. Regardless, even in a loss, to be that competitive was an amazing performance, in my opinion. And to show the counter wrestling that he had was incredible. And for Islam Makhachev, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, you got exposed by a 45er. And I can't believe people are trying to rewrite this narrative. Alexander Volkanovski is one of the best fighters we've ever seen, and Islam Makhachev went out there and beat him. That is an amazing accomplishment no matter what. But I do think Alexander Volkanovski making Islam Makhachev look human makes Islam Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush even more exciting. And I think on top of that, Volkanovski, even in a loss, I mean, the guy's an absolute savage. He's smiling when Islam Makhachev's on his back. He's talking crap to Islam. And I think in this fight, Volkanovski's stock goes through the roof. And then you have the co-main event, Yair Rodriguez defeating Josh Emmett, where Yair looked better than ever. I couldn't be more excited for a Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez title fight and an Islam Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush title fight. I'm really looking forward to both those matchups. I'm going to do a video about both those matchups, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on notifications. That video will be coming out very soon. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you still believe Alexander Volkanovski was robbed? Have you rewatched the fight? Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.